that, there'll be committee assignments, and they'll start moving forward. This will be my first opportunity to be at the Capitol representing the city of Socorro, and I look forward to that. March 8th will be the last day that you can file a bill, and then the last day of the legislative session is May 27th. So we're looking at January 8th through May 27th. I mentioned the number of bills that have already been filed. This is just a flavor of what we have seen in recent sessions. 2009 and in 2011, as many as 7,419 bills were introduced in 2009. That fell off just a little bit in 2011, 5,796 bills. It's hard to tell what the activity level would be this time. This will be my 9th legislative session, and in general, you find 5,000 to 6,000 bills will be introduced in the legislative session. What that means is you're processing an awful lot of information, and usually about 20% of those bills that are filed have some municipal connection. So literally over 1,000 bills will have some relevance to all cities or particular cities. And so part of the process, part of what I will do on your behalf is to review those bills and for potential impact on the city of Socorro and other cities. Every legislative session is dominated by major issues, and I've tried to identify what those are going to look like this legislative session. We're very fond of saying in Austin, those of us in the business, that the only bill the legislature has to pass is the budget. That's usually said very hopefully, as if maybe others won't, but we do ultimately pass over 1,000 bills, and yet the budget is the most important, and it's one in many ways that drives other legislation. But you'll see other things as well. They will revisit some of the cuts that were made in public education 2 years ago. There will be some interesting debates regarding education reform, including, I think, a very vigorous debate about school choice. The legislature some years ago passed a statewide water plan, but they didn't fund it. I think the conversation about funding a statewide water plan is more serious than I have ever seen before. There are recommendations to take money out of the rainy day fund. There are recommendations to tax bottled water, to impose a tap fee on individuals. So they're casting around looking for possibilities of how they can fund what most people in this state consider to be a critical need, and that is to fund a statewide water plan. We're in the second or third year now of a very serious drought across the state, and I think it has finally gotten people's attention. I know it is a priority of the Speaker of the House. He is from San Antonio. I've heard him mention it several times now. We will revisit voter identification bills and redistricting. Both of those legislations passed last session, but courts have found them unconstitutional to some degree or another. They were very divisive legislation last time, and I expect it to be divisive again this time. It sort of sets the tone in the legislature when you bring up issues like this that you know are going to divide the legislature, but they will come up and they will set a certain negative tone, I think, a partisan basis between Republicans and Democrats. Casino gambling may have a little bit more traction than it has in the past. I can't remember the last time we didn't have some kind of a gambling bill in the legislature, but the attempt this time, I believe, will be to pass a constitutional amendment that will take it to the statewide voters and let them decide whether or not Texas should allow casino gambling. I reference it because it will be an important bill before the House and the Senate, but also because Socorro has a vested interest, at least indirectly, because of the entertainment center with Tiglas. And then finally, because it takes a tremendous amount of time during the legislative session, there are a number of state agencies that will go through a sunset process. And periodically, every state agency has to be reviewed by the legislature to decide whether or not it should continue and how it should be changed. And there are very significant agencies that are going to be considered this time: the Texas Education Agency, the Railroad Commission, which governs all of the energy business that we've all been reading about so much in Texas, the Public Utility Commission, which has jurisdiction over electric utility companies as well as telecommunications companies. And then there are a number of other smaller agencies. They take a lot of committee time and a lot of floor time because they're very large and very complicated. So I mentioned those also as significant issues. So what are municipalities going to care about? Well, it's really too soon to tell. We're always surprised. I've already been surprised by a few things that have been introduced. But major issues that I think we need to be concerned about and aware of is an attempt to reduce revenues to cities by altering appraisal or revenue caps. We see these bills come in several different forms. We will see them come in different forms this time as well. Generally speaking, municipalities will oppose those kinds of legislation and try to preserve the status quo. Likewise, there may be an attempt to alter a city's ability to charge right-of-way fees, if you will, to lease your municipal right-of-way and to charge franchise fees. Typically, we find in any legislative session some idea by a member of the legislature to pass responsibilities on to local government, but to not give them the resources to actually address those new responsibilities. We refer those just generically as unfunded mandates, and in general terms, municipalities will oppose unfunded mandates. And then last but certainly not least, we will revisit the issue of eminent domain authority. Already bills have been introduced. It is likely there will be an attempt to shift the balance of power away from those entities, including municipalities, that have eminent domain authority, and to restrict the uses of eminent domain authority. I've already seen one bill that said you could not use eminent domain authority for recreational purposes, including condemning land for a park, for instance. So I expect a healthy debate around those issues. So what are we going to try to accomplish as the City of San Antonio and my representative on your behalf? And I would suggest to you some very modest objectives which can be altered as we grow into this legislative session. Recognize that this is the first time that you have had representation in Austin, and I think that we will all learn together as we move through this session. But I think one of the objectives should be to increase the awareness of the City of Socorro in Austin, that you have decided in retaining the DeBerry Group that you want a seat at the table. And it is going to be my job to find you that seat at the table. Sometimes I will sit in that seat, and hopefully sometimes one of you will sit in that seat. I will look for opportunities to have you come to Austin and participate in the process, because I think that's truly when you show up on the radar screen in a way that you haven't before. During all the 5 months of the legislative session, whether it be in Austin or whether it be back here at home, we will look for opportunities to build relationships with key officials, with your state representative, with your state senator, with other members of the El Paso delegation, with other key appointed and elected officials in Austin for the purposes of promoting municipal interests. That can be done in any number of ways, including office visits, a lunch meeting, or as I said, even a drop by here in the offices in El Paso County. I will look to inject the City of Socorro and its resources and its talent into alliances. The main one would be the Texas Municipal League. The Texas Municipal League does a great job of representing municipal interest generically. But we will be looking to present your presence to be part of that team. There may be other opportunities to work with interests that have the same purposes. Perhaps El Paso County, for instance, perhaps the City of El Paso. I will be in touch with those entities and watching what they're going to be doing, and where we can align and have strength in numbers, then we will do that. Because building alliances and working in alliances is very critical to success in the legislative session. Probably the most important thing from a substantive standpoint is to protect the status quo, and that is protect the municipal powers you have today to serve your constituents. And I mentioned some of those on the previous slide. And then as I get to know you better and you get to understand the process better, we will together look for opportunities that may arise. We've talked a little bit at the edges about what some of those might be, but I think it's going to take time for us to find what those things are that might be unique to the city of Socorro that we can either do this session or possibly tee up for a future session. Having said all that, I would welcome at this time any comments that you have or any questions that you have about the legislative session. It is my intent to interact and to report to you on a regular basis. I think a lot of that will be in writing. We could have conference calls. Like I said, I hope to maybe see one or more of you in Austin during the legislative session. I hope to come back to the city of Socorro during the middle of the session, and then certainly at the end of the session. So with that, thank you very much.
You know, I like the concept. I know that when the legislature passes or are considering bills, they have these committee hearings, and that's the opportunity for whoever is germane to that conversation to show up and voice an opinion for or against. I like the concept of maybe at different points sending different council members to Austin to speak on behalf or against bills that are detrimental to the city of Socorro, and to play maybe even more of a bigger process in that, so that our presence is really felt and they say, wow, who's the city of Socorro that now is interested in all these bills and what's happening with the municipal government. So I like the idea that we start putting our stamp in Austin, because it helps us when we compete for different state grants for the Mission Trail and for historical buildings and all these grants out there. It's good for people to know when we show up to apply for these different funds, these free grants, that they already know who the city of Socorro was, because Representative Madrid went and spoke against the takeaway of eminent domain. So these administrators for these different departments in the state. So I like that concept and I think we should participate in that, and just let them know that we're out here in Socorro and that we have a voice.
Mr. Campbell, I'd like to say something too. It's exciting. It's an exciting time for the city of Socorro, and I feel great that you're going to be representing us. It's time, like as Mr. Campbell said, that they know that we exist, and we're going to make our presence felt. And having a professional group like yourselves represent us, I think it's outstanding.
Thank you.
We've come a long way. Would anybody else like to say something?
Yes, Mr. Campbell, welcome to Socorro. In our brief encounter this afternoon, I got to meet with you, and I was very pleasantly surprised as to what you can do for the city of Socorro as well. So very well.
Thank you.
I too want to welcome you to Socorro. If there's anything that you might need or information that you need on hand when you're in the legislature, you can count on us. Obviously, we've talked, and you can count on me for whatever to help you out in any endeavor. But I did want to ask you one question. Being that we're so close to El Paso, our sister city, their needs and interests are basically more or less like ours. They're also concerned about the water and funding and so forth. You working in hand with the legislative representative from El Paso, or do you know him, or is there any connection?
Well, of course, the city of El Paso is actually represented by several members, and I have worked and known some of the members over the years, and would furthermore say that I'm well acquainted with the lobby team that represents the city of El Paso. So I think that's a connection that's going to be worthwhile to us. You're absolutely correct, Councilman. It should be that 95% plus of what the city of El Paso cares about, the city of Socorro we care about as well. And there may be, because of difference in size and maybe some unique aspects of geography, that in that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%, there may be a difference of opinion. But by and large, yes, we should be on the same page. And again, I can't emphasize too much the importance of trying to build alliances and speaking one voice. And so I will be looking for those opportunities to reach beyond the state representative that represents Socorro, but to try to build a sense that the entire El Paso delegation should care about the city of Socorro's interests as well.
Fantastic.
Mr. Campbell, I have something for you.
Oh, great.
You're from Socorro.
Well, let me say that I had a great tour of the city today and learned an awful lot about it. And I want to thank you all for rolling out the white carpet for me. It seems
Just
better
for
than the
you.
red carpet. Yes.
Just for you.
Thank you very much. This is great.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Look forward to speaking with you again. We have the consent
I have one
agenda.
for you too, but I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, we're done. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Jesse Cámara, seconded by Gloria Rodriguez. Willie Madrid,
Yes.
Gloria Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mary Garcia,
Doesn't vote.
Jesus Cámara.
Yes.
Thank you. We have regular agenda. Item 20, discussion and action to provide training for police officers on how to identify and interact with people who have autism and other developmental disabilities. Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes. I've been in contact with Mrs. Thompson, and she has informed me that she has a person that is willing to come over here and give a training, a free training for everybody that's interested in taking the training. We would like to include also the firemen, anybody that would be interested in coming over. We're in the process of looking for a place. I think I found one that will house about 400 people. So I'll be in contact with her, and we will be working on this so that we can bring this person over here and give us all the training that so need. Okay, so motion to approve. We have a
Motion made by Gloria Rodriguez.
And real quick, just for clarification, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
So this is a free training that she's gonna come to Socorro to provide?
Uh-huh.
Second?
Seconded by Jesus Cámara. Willie Madrid,
Yes.
Gloria Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jesus Cámara.
Yes.
Motion passed.
We have item 21, discussion and action on appointing District 2 representative as liaison for Socorro Veterans Celebration Park Project. Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, like we had said before, this council has been doing, providing really many positive projects for the city of Socorro, and this would be one of them. We always have the veterans in mind, and they have nothing here in Socorro for them, to honor them. And so we're going to start with the planning of that park also. So I would like to make a motion. Make a motion to accept, and I would like to be the liaison for that project. I don't know if the other people in council have a different idea, but I would like to start the process.
Second?
Motion made by Gloria Rodriguez, seconded by Jesus Cámara. Willie Madrid,
Yes.
Gloria Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jesus Cámara.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 22, discussion and action on forming a committee to gather and review information pertaining to veterans of Socorro. Ms. Rodriguez?
Motion to approve. It ties in with number 21.
Second?
Motion made by Gloria Rodriguez, seconded by Jesus Cámara. Willie Madrid,
Yes.
Gloria Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Jesus Cámara.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 23, discussion and action on approving creation of Socorro Next Generation Leadership Commission and bylaws of new commission. Mr. Gondara?
This is actually not my item. This was a mistake given me credit to by our city clerk. This is actually Mr. Madrid's item. And I don't know if you want to say anything.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Gloria Rodriguez, seconded by Jesus Cámara. Willie Madrid,
Of course, yes.
Gloria Rodriguez,
Yes.
Jesus Cámara.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 24, discussion and action on a library in the city of Socorro. Mr. Gondara?
We actually have a video, if you'll hold on just one second. and you all have the minutes to that, that you could follow along verbatim. Back then, the city of Socorro, about 6 years ago, is it you pause it? Or are you gonna let it run until it gets to the point? About 6 years ago, the city of